Thank you, Sam, so much, and thanks, Jayshree, for bringing us together. It's truly an honor to be with this esteemed group of colleagues and leaders who came together to express our feelings and our anguish at this moment. And thanks to Rabbi Jacobs for her words as well. As I have been traveling back and forth to Israel several times since October 7th, 2023, one specific marker stands out to me, and that those of you who have, like me and like many of us, arrived at Ben Gurion Airport and walked down the tarmac through the airport, through the terminal on your way to baggage claim and out, into the reception hall, have of course noticed that the walkway is lined with posters of hostages. And each time that I arrive at Ben Gurion Airport, there are fewer and fewer hostage posters lining the walkway there, which is encouraging. It's encouraging because we know that we cannot sleep and we cannot rest until every single one of those hostages has been returned. And it's encouraging to think what was the cause of their return, that most of those hostages have come through some diplomatic process, some negotiation, some way of talking and reaching an agreement through which we will bring them out of the hell that they're sitting in. We know that there are 50 still remaining, and we assume and hope that around 20 of them are still alive. What we also know is that the worse the conditions remain and continue to grow worse and more severe in Gaza, will not help bring our hostages out and will not help bring an end to the war. As we recently wrote in our statement, that no one should be unaffected by the pervasive hunger experienced by thousands or hundreds of thousands of Gazans, that no one should spend the bulk of their time arguing over technical definitions between whether it's a famine or starvation or pervasive hunger or how dire the situation is. It is dire and it is deadly, regardless of what news report that you read. We should not also accept that the arguments that because Hamas is the primary reason many Gazans are either starving or on the verge of starving, that we as Jews and the Jewish state is not also responsible. We all know very well who Hamas is and what their motives are, and that they, in fact, benefit from the worsening of the conditions here. And it should be in the interest of both us as the leaders of many in the Jewish community in North America, and of course, the Jewish state, to say the better that we improve those conditions, the worse it will actually be for Hamas. We can't control the actions of others, and we can only control the actions of ourselves. I want to build on what Rabbi Jacob said in thinking very much about Tisha B'Av, and I want to speak personally for a moment. A couple of weeks ago, I received a letter in the camp mail from my 10th grade daughter, who is spending a summer in a Hebrew immersive program at one of our flagship Reform Movement summer camps. She's spending the summer with 21 and 22-year-old Israeli madrichim, who many of them have served in the reserve units and served in their regular army duty, both in Gaza and the north and around the country, and have lost friends and are deeply affected by the post-October 7th reality. And she asked what seemingly was a simple question, but that pierced much deeper than she had intended. She said to me the following. She said, Abba, I was just wondering, what would we talk about if there was no October 7th? And it led me on a deep journey of introspection and reflection, and thinking about this moment in very similar ways to the way that our tradition thinks about the destruction of the temple. That was a point when time changed. That was a point when our reality was disrupted and changed forevermore. And as I thought about it, I thought about what the response of the rabbis was to that destruction. After the two Jerusalem temples were destroyed, they did something radical. They stopped and they reinvented Judaism. We know that sacrifice, of course, gave way to study, and pilgrimage gave way to prayer. A localized God became now omnipresent, dwelling among us in both words and deeds. Their response to destruction was not necessarily despair, but creative resilience and redefinition. And that must come from our brokenness. This moment offers us an opportunity for moral clarity, for solidarity, and of course, for courageous leadership. And when we look at the causes of the destruction of those temples, we often have this Jewish traditional response of looking inwards and saying, what was it about our behavior that led to this calamity, led to this destruction? Was it that we worshiped false gods and were guilty of idol worship, or was it the ever well-known notion of sinat chinam, of wanton hatred of one another? And of course, as a student of Jewish history, you have to look at the sectarian Judaism of that time and look at those who exhibited extreme, if not zealous, behavior. It was those who were calling and burning food stocks in order to prevent Jews from leaving Jerusalem to flee the siege on the city. It was those who saw one singular vision as the only possible outcome, which we know was so dangerous and which we know led to disaster for our people. Sadly, we see this zealous and extremist ideology coming from none other than the halls of the Knesset and the seats of the government sitting around that cabinet table today. Calls to level Gaza, to destroy everything in our midst, and calls, in fact, to now resettle Gaza and annex parts of those territories for the benefit of Israel. Let this moment on Tisha B'Av be a reminder, be a clarion call that we must reject and we must stand up strongly, strongly in opposition to those ministers of the governor who call for continued violence, who call for continued mass killing, and for those who make Palestinian lives seem less than Jewish lives. That is a critically, critically important moment. You see, before October 7th, we talked about justice, freedom, peace, and tikva, and hope. We talked about democracy and the importance of its preservation. Those are the things that we must talk about again. We must talk about them now more than ever, because while we are a people who remember the ruins in our history, we are also a people who rebuild from them. I ask all of us to join together now to reject that extremism, that messianism, and call to rebuild back on the values of the foundation of the State of Israel, and exactly that justice, freedom, and peace that we read in our Declaration of Independence, and that we come together with a clear moral voice for this moment. Toda Rabbi.